Hey there, episode 168. Today we have Todd Pultz, a real estate investor with a great motivating story who suffered many roadblocks and obstacles in his life to succeeding to become a real estate success. More of his story and more coming up.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and to reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now, your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Todd Pultz. He's a real estate investor from Dayton, Ohio, as well as the founder of Bottom to the Top Investments, who focuses on multifamily properties and fix and flips as well as other things. Todd, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, definitely really intrigued by your backstory. Been hearing you on different podcasts, and so I definitely have to have this guy on here, especially as we head towards 2021 to kind of, find out, what's going through your mind as far as things that you're doing and how you're able to turn from tragedy in order to success. So I really appreciate you taking the time. But for people who are not familiar with your background, would you mind talking about how you got started in real estate and what your current focus is?
Sure. My story is pretty simple, man. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, moved to Riverside, Ohio, which is, borders Dayton, Ohio, kind of similar demographics. And grew up very poor, man. I grew up in a trailer court. We originally were in the projects, moved to a trailer court, had a dad that, jumped job to job. And my mom got through like eighth grade and that was it. So, very poor upbringing, man. And I didn't have a lot of skills when it came to finances and money. And I certainly as hell didn't ever hear anything about real estate growing up. But when I got older, man, became a police officer, got my degree in criminal justice, went on to corporate investigations with a large retail company. But the one thing that I was always missing in my life was those skills about how to manage money, how to build wealth, how to really make money work for you. And I found myself in a lot of, financial issues, despite being able to make a really good salary. I mean, I was making six figures, right? But I didn't understand how to manage that money. I didn't understand how to build wealth and how to live with financial freedom. In 2012, man, that's when things kind of clicked for me. I was in a new relationship. She's my wife now, but we were sitting on the couch and looked outside and my car was being repossessed from her driveway. And, that was embarrassing, man. Her family lived across the street from me. Her mom and dad lived across the street from her. At the same time, my first house that I had bought on my own was being foreclosed on. And most of it was it wasn't because I didn't have money, because I was making good money and I was able to pay my bills. But the biggest part was I just didn't manage my money, and I wasn't good at making my money work for me. And I was going out and spending it, right? I was typical. I would make money, I would spend money. I'd make money, I would spend money. And then I would just put my bills off and I procrastinate. But when I got my house foreclosed on, when I got my car repossessed, and when I felt that embarrassment, I felt like I was at a low at a financial point despite making money. That's when I just said to myself, I got to do something different, right? Like, I want to be able to leave a legacy for my family. I want to be able to build generational wealth. I want to be able to pay bills without looking at my bank account. And I just made the decision 2012, it was towards the end of 2012, to jump into real estate. And, when I did that, I just said, I'm going to be all in. And that's how it started, man.
Yeah, I know a lot of people resonate with that. And reason being is because, like I said, is not any financial education out there. People just kind of go in, they get a corporate job, or they just live in paycheck to paycheck, and then they just kind of go along with either what they kind of see on TV or see what other people are doing, and then really don't dive into the educational part to kind of learn of taking their life to the next level. You had got that education as far as real estate. You utilized that tool to take yourself to the next level. Can you kind of talk about your transition into real estate? How was kind of the first type of niche that you got into? Was it the fix and flip, or did you jump directly into multifamily? And can you talk about some of the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, so it was really, for me, I jumped right into multifamily, and I'll tell you why. And before I do that, like, a lot of people say, like, you always hear, like, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter, where you live at, like, you can do anything you want. And I think that is very, very true. But what they forget to put in that is they forget to say that some people are at a disadvantage, right? And if you grow up in a poor family, if you grow up in a home where you don't have a father or a mother that teaches you a lot of those skills with finances and wealth and real estate and things like that, you're starting off at a disadvantage and you have to work to overcome that. So yes, you can do whatever you want, but you got to get the education. You got to educate yourself, and you got to be the one that makes it happen. And you got to motivate yourself, because nobody in this world is going to do it for you. And that's what I knew right then. I said, I know nothing about real estate other than I knew a couple people, like my friend's dad at the time. He was in real estate a little bit, and he had some rental properties. And that's kind of how I started. I went to him and I said, look, I got $10,000 in my police retirement account. If I go out and I find us a 4-unit building for $20,000, will you match my $10,000? And we'll go in together and we'll just 50-50 it. And of course, I tell us all the time, he laughed and said, sure, man, I'll do that for you. Like, you're never going to find a 4-unit building for, $20,000. Now at the time, at the end of 2012, that was a different world, right? Like we were coming out of the housing bubble, coming out of the housing crisis. There was a lot of investors that bought a ton of stuff across the country, and they bought it for really cheap. But where a lot of them failed at was they didn't have systems and processes in place to make those buildings efficient and make those buildings operate to where they were making money. So the very first one that I found was on the MLS, and it was, between 60 and 70,000. I can't remember exactly how much it was listed. And I knew that was out of the price range, because I didn't know anything about leverage. Like, I didn't know you could get a loan on an investment property, right? Like, that wasn't even in my vocabulary. But I said to myself, if I'm going to do this, I need to practice every skill. And at that point, it was, I want to practice my negotiations. I want to practice talking to a realtor. I want to see what I can get this down to, even if it's outside of my comfort zone. And that's what I started. I called the realtor on this. And fortunately, she was, pretty laid back, and she let me go direct to the guy that was trying to sell it. And when we found out who that was, it was actually a guy who had it on land contract from another guy who had bought it foreclosure. And that guy, the owner, was in Iowa. So we kind of skirted around that. We went to the original owner that had it, and he said, yeah, I got it on land contract. This guy, he hasn't paid me a penny yet, would not pay taxes, not paying water bill. And for me, it was pretty simple. I said, well, what if we take him out of this? If we get him out of the equation, will you sell us the building for $19,000? And he said, sure, man, I'll be able to get my money back out of it. I'll make $1,000, and, that'd be a good deal for me, because I don't want to be in Dayton anymore. Right. So we went back to the guy that had it on land contract. It was a shady little handyman who just convinced an out-of-state owner to put it under land contract. And we gave him $1,000. We said, man, we give you $1,000 to walk away from this. Otherwise, the owner's going to take you to court. He's going to sue you. He's going to take the property back. You're not going to make anything. And that guy, he said, yeah, he's all right. I'll walk away with $1,000. So we gave him $1,000 to walk away. We paid the original owner $19,000. So we were right around like $21,000 to close that. And at that time, my friend's dad, who was my mentor, and he's still a business partner for me now in real estate, and we do some big stuff together, he gave me the other part of that money. The building was rented out. It was all rented low. It wasn't a phenomenal building, and we had to stick like $12,000 in it just to update it and bring it up so we could raise rents. So he gave us that $12,000. But first deal all in, man, we were right in at like 33,000, whatever that amount was. And that was it, man. It was history. Everything was, everything's been downhill since then. And that's where we started. So a 4-unit building.
Awesome. And as far as Scott, is your target market still Ohio? Are you venturing out to different markets? And if Ohio is still a market, you kind of talk to the listeners who are not familiar with Dayton and overall Ohio. I talked to a whole bunch of investors that focuses on that marketplace, and they just love it. Can you kind of talk about that and just kind of update the listeners on that?
Yeah. So when you look at, this is my primary market. I don't go outside of Dayton. I do some stuff and I partner on some deals outside of the area. But my primary focus is Ohio, and that's where most of our multifamily is at, and specifically Dayton, Ohio. And Dayton has been a very good market to me. And when you look across the country and you decide what your goals are, you either have 2 goals in real estate. You're either going for the long-term appreciation and the wealth, or you are going for cash flow. Or you're going for both, and there has to be a certain method to get there, right? So for me, it was all about cash flow at the time, being able to replace income, and that's still really my main emphasis is that cash flow. In Dayton and a lot of cities in the Midwest like Dayton, they are cash flow king, and you can really kill it because the price of entry is very, very low.
Exactly.
The problem with Dayton is that if you listen to the big, huge podcast, right, and you listen to all these gurus that tell you to run all the equations and the formulas, and they have sites set up to determine where you want to invest at, Dayton will never populate on any of those formulas because our crime per capita is high, our unemployment is a little bit higher, our vacancy rates show higher on paper. So Dayton is not a market that immediately pops off. But for me, when I look at Ohio, we have our primary markets, which is Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, which is what a lot of people talk about. But then for me, I break it down into the secondary markets, and Dayton is a secondary market based on our population. And that's where you can really get some crazy, crazy value and some good cash flow. So a lot of people overlook Dayton, but here in the last year, we've seen a lot of out of state money coming in. So for me, I love Dayton, and there's some backstory with Dayton that some people don't know. Like for example, our vacancy rate. If you look on paper, it doesn't look great. But for me, I've never ran more than a 3% vacancy. I know that we have some big factories coming in. I know that the city is dumping tons of money into our more challenging C and D areas to revitalize those. I know that in 2019, we had a tornado that took out a bunch of affordable housing, including 12 of my buildings, and that we have a housing shortage that just hasn't overcome yet. So, for us, Dayton is phenomenal, man. My business partner, my new business partner from we've been together a year, he was in Reno, Nevada, and he was investing in Ohio and specifically Columbus. But then when we hooked up, he's like, man, this is a good market. So 4 weeks ago, he moved here to Columbus, Ohio. That way we can kind of tackle everything in between. So Dayton is really, really strong. The price of entry is really low. We're seeing some good appreciation. But from a cash flow standpoint, from a price of entry standpoint, and for new investors specifically, they're going to invest out of state, you do not have to have a lot of money to do that in Dayton, Ohio, man. And that's what I love about it.
And as far as kind of the target unit size, are you guys focusing kind of like that 4-unit stuff, or a little bit more bigger? And or what kind of other opportunities you seeing there as far as kind of like people getting in there?
Yeah, so myself and my partnership, we focus on larger multifamily right now. I built my initial portfolio with triplexes and quads, solid brick, slab, tris, and quads. That's what I love. That's what we do. I like the 2-story brick quads too, but that's how I built my initial portfolio. I mean, that's how I made my first $1 million, was on those specific properties. But now we're focused on larger multifamily. We'll pick up a 16 unit or, something like that, but we're going for larger properties. But from my realtor standpoint and the clients that I help, and a lot of clients that are out of state, that's where I get them into. And that's where I want to mentor them, is to be able to get into the same thing that I did, the tris and the quads, because that's where you can start to build a really nice cash replacement for yourself and start replacing that W-2 income. And a lot of my clients are having some really good success.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was talking about. It's about the cash flow, because like I said, you mentioned people are talking about this appreciation stuff, especially now as we head into a market cycle where people don't know where everything's going to be going. You want to be focusing on that cash flow and coming in. Can you kind of talk about kind of shifting the topics a little bit regarding managing your real estate business as well as with family as well? I know that you're really big into family. I mentioned that into your backstory. Can you kind of talk about working with both of those and how can that resonate with other people?
Yeah, so that's, I'll be honest, and these are things that a lot of people don't talk about. They want to give all the glory on Instagram and Facebook and everything and act like everything is perfect. But I think one of the challenging pieces for a real estate investor, especially for guys like me that are still scaling, is it's a constant struggle and it's a constant battle with family, right? And you got to be able to put your time into certain buckets, and you have to know how to use those buckets. And when one gets too full, you got to be able to pour a little bit out. And you can't do that if you don't develop systems and processes. And I think where a lot of people fail and where a lot of people start having some relationship issues is you get in that middle ground where you need to hire some people, or you need to bring a team in, but maybe you're too cheap or you're just not doing it right. Mm-hmm. And I was in that for quite some time. And when you're in a relationship, like my wife, she didn't want nothing to do with real estate. I mean, she enjoys the lifestyle that it provides us, but she's a nurse. She's an ICU nurse, a phenomenal woman, incredibly smart, but she works 3 days a week. Okay. And those are 12-hour shifts. She works her ass off. Right. So I'm not going to knock that, but having somebody like that works at that type of job, trying to understand that as a real estate investor, I'm working 6 and 7 days. And there might be times where I'm taking calls at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. That's hard for your significant other to understand. And you have to constantly be intentional with your actions in your relationship. And I fail at it often, man. I really do. And as much as I try to make sure that I'm giving my family the time that they need, there are plenty of times where I fail, and not allowing myself to get pulled too far out of what I know that I have time for. That's really where I focus at. But you have to be intentional and consistent with those actions. But you have to couple that with, if you're a new investor, you got to work your tail off, man. This is not an easy game. It's simple to understand. It's simple to conquer, but it is hard and it's a struggle and it takes time. And you got to be able to do all that together. And when you fail, you have to be man enough or woman enough to kick yourself in the ass and say, you know what? I failed. I didn't do good and I need to do better. And most of the time I have great success with real estate. I really do. I've had some low times, man, some very dark moments in real estate, but I've had a lot of great success with real estate. The moments where I failed is typically with my family.
Yeah, that's why the reason I'd asked that, because like I said, that's something that always in my mind, and every time I talk to investors, I kind of ask them like, what are your goals? You know, like what are you trying to achieve? And like I said, because me, the first and foremost is your family, and trying to build like a nice legacy for them. Of course, you're trying to make it as perfect as you can, but we as humans, we're trying our best and we fail and we have to adjust and things like that. So I'm glad you're able to touch on those points. And it's kind of finally, kind of what's kind of like your future goals? Are you gonna kind of continuously grow in that Ohio market? Is there any other sub markets that you can kind of let us know that you're eyeing on, that investors may be interested as well?
Yeah, so right now we're continuing to scale, and there's still enough pie out there for us to continue taking pieces in the Dayton area. So we're going to continue to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
We've put a little more emphasis on some wholesaling. We've kind of transitioned a little bit, and we're starting to do some land flips and land development as the inventory starts to tighten up. I've been shifting a little bit to build my realtor team because I've only had my realtor's license for like 8 or 9 months, but that's going really well. So I've been building a team underneath of me that can handle all of those. Like I said earlier, my partner moved to Columbus. So he already has some investments up there personally. So we're starting to transition some of our multifamily thinking up to the Columbus area. For us, we want to be at about 1,000 doors that him and I own personally by the end of 2021. And I want to be, from a realtor standpoint, I want to be bringing in 300,000-400,000 from that piece of it. But one of the things we've been working on a lot lately is really developing mentor courses and some online courses that we can give out there to people. I've always kind of been against paying for a mentor. I've never done it myself. But one of the things that I've found is as I've put myself out there more and I've allowed myself to be more vulnerable on social media and especially TikTok when I'm out there dancing and doing stupid stuff, I found that a lot of people reach out and I don't have enough time for everybody, right? And as much as I don't want to charge people and I want to give them free stuff, like there has to be some type of replacement for my time. And if I can keep a small group, but then allow this platform for people to go and learn real estate through us and make a little bit of income like that, then we're going to do that. So we're working on that. I'm working on writing a book. So those are really our goals, man. Fairly simple, except for the 1,000 units. We'll get there, but it's going to be some hard work this year.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. It's very ambitious, and like I said, a lot of the similarities between me and you, so would definitely resonate there as well. Can you take us through? I know you have your multiple businesses and all the different stuff you're trying to scale. Can you walk us through like a typical work day for you, and then do you personally have any special morning routines?
Yeah, so I'm very intentional. I'm very consistent every single day, and I find that if I don't allow myself to be consistent and intentional every day, then I fail or I drop something in some part of my day. So for me, it's pretty simple. I'm up around 5:30 in the morning. I'm looking through anything that wholesalers sent to me, any leads that came in, any MLS listings, Craigslist, Zillow, any for sale by owner type stuff. Like I go through all that first thing in the morning. I check my Instagram. I respond to every single person that responded to me from a post. I check my TikToks and respond to every single comment. I try to put out a little bit of morning content to kind of get the morning flowing. And then I go out and I do whatever's first, right? So if it's an auction day, I'm driving auction properties. If it's something that was a lead, I'm going to drive those properties. And then after I'm done with that, I usually try to get in the office and I touch base with my team, the realtors that work for me. Different people that are on my teams, my maintenance guys, we're setting up their morning. We're laying out game plans for the week. And then I try to take a little bit of administrative time. And then the biggest part of my day is going out and doing property inspections and doing the property management stuff and, making sure that the buildings are running efficiently. I drive for dollars every single day. Every day I drive for dollars, despite how much real estate I do, despite the wealth I have. Like I know that nobody will do that as good as I do it. So I spend my time driving leads and doing follow-ups when it comes to that. And I'm usually home, depending on what day it is. I'm usually home by 5:30, 6 o'clock, sometimes a little bit later. And then when I get home, I do the same thing. I check the Instagram, I check the TikTok from whatever content I put out in the middle of the day. And then I try to do my family time. And then, usually around 9:30, 10 o'clock when the family's going to bed, then I'll do a little bit more work. Maybe I'll write up a contract or I'll do something, but that's pretty consistent every single day. And I break it up that way. And on the weekends, kind of the same thing for the most part, other than I'm not going out during the day. I'm usually coaching sports or, spending time with the family or doing something along those lines.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely, like I said, I love the intentional stuff that you have, like I said, and especially, driving, you're doing all that stuff, driving leads and all that stuff, managing the team. I love that. That's awesome. And as far as kind of with your team and things like that, maybe you do it personally, is there any other tools and resources that you use to make you guys more productive?
So from a multifamily standpoint, I am in love with Buildium software. Like that, when I switched to Buildium for all my management stuff, like that changed my life, man. It cut down my time at properties by like 70%. So I love Buildium. I use Deal Machine. I use PropStream. for driving for dollars, for skip tracing, things along those lines. Like, so those are the softwares that I'm using. We have an internal CRM that we use to manage our leads and to, do things along that. But for me, it's just about, automating the day for the most part. Like when I stick a lead in Deal Machine or Prop Stream, I know that all I got to do is hit a button later on. It starts the flyers or it starts the phone calls. And that helps my business quite often. So we use, I'll tell you one of the things that I live on, man, and it's not like flashy, but it's WhatsApp, so for every project I have going on, anybody that's involved in that project's on WhatsApp. For any deal that I have or one of my realtor clients, so if I take one of my clients that I meet that I'm mentoring and I hook them up with another realtor that handles the minor things with the real estate piece, like all of us are included on a WhatsApp or whatever. And we're text messaging back and forth, like we're running numbers back and forth. And then I know that I can just go back into WhatsApp and I can pull up that actual lead or that conversation to find things, because if not, you're going to forget everything. So
exactly.
Just keeping those things organized, but those are the main tools that we're using right now.
Awesome. Yeah. And once again, I love the backstory. Like I said, very, very motivational. I know a lot of people's going to resonate with that. Can you talk about, with all your success and all of the stuff you've been through, what are you most grateful for?
Man, I'll tell you, for me, real estate has been phenomenal. And what I'm most grateful for is my family. And, when we talk about that, it's not just that I have a family, that I have a great wife, that I have great kids, but they have showed me support and supported the business in ways that I couldn't imagine. Like the second property that I bought, with all cash, it was the last bit of cash that me and my wife had, $20,000. It burnt down 2 days after I closed it. And I didn't have insurance on the building because I was a new investor. I made a stupid decision and I lost $20,000 in a matter of 2 days. Okay. My wife stayed with me during that. When we got hit by the tornadoes and we had $1.1 million in damage, and I was sleeping in my car overnight to protect the property. And I was there for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. And I was GCing the project from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I was gone from my family. They supported me and they stayed beside me. And without them, man, none of this would be possible. Right. And like, you always got to ask yourself, like, what is your why? And I tell a lot of young investors that, like, you're not just investing to make money. Like, what is your why? Do you want a Lamborghini? Do you want a flashy car? Do you want to go hang out with Ryan Panetta or one of those guys that's killing it on TikTok? Like, what is your why? And for me, my why is my family. And without them beside me, man, none of this is possible.
Yeah, definitely well said. I really appreciate that. And then finally, we'll make sure to have all of the contact information in the show notes and blast this out to our network. But how do we get in contact with you?
So I'm most active on Instagram, and it's at Todd Pultz Official. So just my name and then official. I'm pretty active on TikTok, which is the same thing, Todd Pultz Official. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Todd Pultz. And that's really it, man. Like, those are the 3 platforms that I live on. Bigger Pockets, I'm pretty active on Bigger Pockets. That's just under my name, Todd Pultz. So you can reach me on any of those, and I respond to every single one of them. If you leave me a message or a DM, I don't have, some content manager that's responding to everything. Like, it's me responding. I'll respond to you. It might take me a few hours, might take me a day, but I'll get back to every single person that reaches out to me.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Todd. I really appreciate it. Like I said, great meeting you. Great story. Continued success to next year. All the best to you and the family. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
All right, Dwaine. Thanks so much, man. Have a great year.
You as well. Take care, my friend.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and to reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now, your host, Dwaine Clarke.